So we are in week 4 now of the Mount, and I'm really excited to be able to share with you this way today. My family and I are taking a little bit of a trip with some of our extended family, Wendy's family, and so thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of this. And I'm going to present a little bit differently today. The slides will be right here with me, and so I can kind of refer to them, and there's not a lot of switching back and forth, so you'll be able to see what I am seeing as we talk about these concepts. Because today's concept is really an interesting one, and it's one that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. And I think it's so good for where we're at right now as we talk about this idea of loving our enemies. And that's difficult. It's difficult sometimes to love our family and our friends and ourselves. And so if you talk about loving someone that doesn't like you very much or has been mean to you, or you've been mean to, or whatever that looks like, whatever that discord between the two of you is, that can be a real challenge. And one of those classic examples for me is Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, right? Huge nerds, so obviously these two guys are part of my past and my history. And thinking about their relationship and that big, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's been a long time, so you should have seen it by now. But this is father and son, and don't know that for a long time, at least Luke doesn't, and when it's revealed, it's one of those most classic messed up movie lines, Luke, I am your father. No, that's not how it goes. But anyway, and there's something that's a choice here that I don't think is talked about enough, and that is a really interesting choice that Luke makes. He has every reason to just hate Darth Vader, right? And then when you get into the prequels and you learn more about this, he's just not a great guy. So there's a lot of reasons to not like him, but instead, Luke chooses to not let what evil is in Darth Vader's heart ruin his heart. And so he makes an active choice here to not persecute his enemy, to not hate his enemy. And instead, that choice changes everything for him. And I think the lesson that we learn there is that we all get this choice, right? And I think Star Wars is great at that, of continually showing relationships where people have a choice. And some people make good use of that choice. Some people make the wrong choice initially and make the right choice later. But you don't have to let someone's evil towards you make you evil. You don't have to be. You don't have to live in that way. And so Jesus calls us this same kind of radical love, to love your enemies. And that is something that even after he did it perfectly, even after he illustrated it for us, it's so difficult to take home. Not to love just the people we like, not to love just the people that everybody else expects us to, our friends and our family, but to love people that we don't like, to love our critics, to love our opponents, to love those who have maliciously said things about us that are not true. How do you love someone like that? How do you love someone? And the funny thing is, what if, and this is my big question for us today as we get started with this, what if the most Christ-like thing you'll ever do in your life isn't about feeding a homeless person, isn't about giving your testimony on a stage in front of a million people and telling them about Jesus? What if it's not even praying with your kids? But what if the most Christ-like, like on the scale here, the most Christ-like you'll ever get in this life is when you choose to love an enemy? That's a big, big question, because it's probably true and so difficult. So we're going to dive into that concept today. What if this is something that you'd never win an award for, that no one on earth would ever praise you for? In fact, your friends and family will go, you're crazy for loving them. You're crazy for being nice to them. But what if that's the most Christ-like way you could ever witness in this entire life? We're going to dive into that concept today, because I think we live in this culture right now of echo chamber, right? Everything's becoming smaller. When I was a kid, there were like 3 channels on, and if you watched a program that night, there was a really good chance that all your friends were going to have watched that, and you could talk about that show the next day. You could talk about, I remember in the Gulf War, there was a night when the Scuds were falling, and Wolf Blitzer disappeared off our TV at the same time, and everybody, was freaking out about that. And then we went to school the next day, and we talked about the fact that what a big deal that was. He was fine, but it was very emotional. There were TV shows and sitcoms, Saturday morning cartoons. We all had this kind of common language because we were pretty much consuming the same media. Well, now, cable TV changed that. I didn't grow up with cable TV, but that changed that. And then beyond that, the internet has just fragmented people so far that, you'll say, hey, have you seen this show on Netflix? And I have Netflix, but I'll be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you got to go check it out. But if you say that, at the same time, 10 people have 10 other shows, that there's no way if you watched shows all day long, you would catch all of them. No, watch mine. No, watch mine. No, watch mine. There's just so much fragmentation going on. And so in the same way with our opinions about religion and politics and whatever, finance, all philosophy, we have all these different opinions, and they're all fragmented because we have all these little echo chambers where we don't hear the perspectives as anyone else. And so we just kind of are all away from each other. And in that same time, we're very quick to hit the cancel button. Like, let's get them fired, let's get them excluded, let's get them away. And as we do that and as we lean into that more and more, it feels impossible even just to be heard. And it seems really impossible that I would ever listen to someone that's in a different echo chamber than my own, and that I might give them mercy, that I might show love towards them, that I might help them. But Jesus was not content to leave us wallowing in this mess. Even in his time, he was dealing with people that were very, very opposed to each other, wouldn't even touch each other, wouldn't even look at each other, wouldn't even help someone out, wouldn't attend a wedding or a funeral or a ceremony for someone that was of a different religious background or a different caste. And yet Jesus broke those apart and said, no, you've got to love even your enemies. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to continue on in the Sermon on the Mount, and today we'll be in Matthew chapter 5, verse 38. And I'm going to read about 10 verses there. We're going to focus in on one particular area of that, but I will read these 10 verses because I think this gives context here for what he's talking about. So we ended last week kind of talking about this idea that Jesus did a lot of, you've heard said, but I say to you, and that he didn't come to break the law or abolish the law, but he came to fulfill the law. And so he has a final teaching here in the last part of chapter 5 where he breaks that apart once again, and he uses that same language. He says, you have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So basically the law at that time, someone hurts you, you hurt them back. Someone steals from you, you can steal from them back. Someone takes your eye, you can take their eye. It's like literally you just do exactly what they did to you. But he says, listen to this, verse 39, but I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier, which was common in their culture, a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, that was the law, he says carry it 2 miles. And that's where we get our idiom today of going the extra mile for someone, right? That's everywhere. That's in business, that's in hospitality. Go the extra mile. Right here, this is the birth of it. And Jesus says in verse 42, give to those who ask and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. So he establishes a different way of thinking about the law here. The law allows you this. You are within your legal rights, but he says, the law is not what we're doing. We're going beyond that. We're going to go way beyond that. And revenge is not the order of the day anymore. No, instead it is love, it is mercy, it is grace, it is peace. He continues, you've heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. So again, he takes the cultural norm and turns it on its head. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even the corrupt tax collectors do that much. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. But you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, a lot of us hear that and we're like, perfect. I can't be perfect. But he's saying that's the goal. The goal is to not let your emotions run and ruin your life or others. It is instead to strive for the perfect love of the Father. And he sends sunlight on the good and the evil. And he sends Rain on the good and the evil. That means the good and the evil both have good days and both have bad days. So Jesus says, this is not about you just, I'm tolerating these people. No, it goes far beyond toleration, doesn't it? It goes beyond, I'm willing to let them live and I just don't want to know anything about their life. I don't want to hear about their life. I want to live in my little monastery surrounded by all this wild stuff and I don't want to even know about them. I don't want to know that they exist. He says, no. Don't just tolerate them. Love them. Don't just coexist with them. Love them. Don't just hope that you don't ever see them or interact with them, but actually interact with them. Bless them. Show them mercy. Pray for those people that come after you and don't like you. How different is this than the current narrative we hear in many Christian circles in our society about our rights and defending our rights over those of others? When Jesus says, it isn't about your rights, it's about doing the right thing. And that is loving those that feel unloved. That is loving those that hate you. Bless them, pray for them. Do good to your enemies. Not just people that will pay you back, not just people that need it really bad, and it's clear to everyone in society that they're in a huge need. But do things for people that actively don't like you, your critics. Surprise the world. This is what surprised the world about Jesus. He loved everyone. He went after those people that were like tax collectors. He went after people that were prostitutes, and he said, hey, God loves you. And that just blew the minds of the religious folks and would still blow our minds today because we're still weak on this. You loving your enemy is not about you being weak. It is actually about you having the spiritual courage to go beyond what everyone else is capable of doing. People, normal people, people that are not inspired by the Spirit of God are not able to do this. No, they want revenge. That is the human thing. You hit me, I hit you back. Maybe twice as hard, right? Revenge is the order of the day of our culture. But instead, Jesus teaches this countercultural thing. This is how Jesus lived himself. This is how he died on the cross. He forgave even his executioners as he hung there dying. And that's real humanity. That's what it really means to be fully human, to be God's creation. That's what a real man would do, is be spiritually courageous. So let's take a look at this. I love this part here where he says, if someone wants to sue you, right, they want to take your shirt, which suing your shirt off, I mean, there's just a lot in the Bible that comes out in our culture or the way that we talk about things. But if they want to take even your shirt, hand over your coat as well. So give them more, right? If anyone forces you to go a mile with them, go more, go 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. So don't forget people that maybe, are wanting to hurt you. I mean, someone suing you is wanting to hurt you, but he says, look, don't let that be a part of it. Let grace be the order of the day. And until we let grace be our main overriding way that we think about this, we are not fully loving like Christ loves. We are temporarily limiting our capacity. We are shortening our capacity to love people like Jesus, as long as we are holding on to that idea of revenge over mercy, grace, and peace towards those that do not deserve it, to those that actively want to hurt us. We limit our own selves. We limit ourselves. Richard Rohr famously said it this way. He said, enemy love isn't possible through willpower. Willpower is not enough. Enemy love isn't possible through willpower. It flows from a healed, integrated self. Think about the difference between this. We try willpower on everything, don't we? We try it on finances. We try it on our health. We try just to will ourselves to get out of bed sometimes and go to work. And sometimes that's difficult, right? If you ever tried to get up in the morning and without an alarm, man, I can't do it. Maybe you can, but I'll wake up eventually. But if I don't have that alarm at 5 a.m. or at 6 a.m., I'm not getting out of bed. And I'll wake up eventually, like I said, but it'll be long after I should have been up. And so getting ourselves the willpower to love our enemies is not possible, he says. The only way it's possible is if you are a person that's been forgiven. and you are a person that has been loved by God, and you have integrated yourself into that kind of concept. Until grace changes you, you will constantly limit your capacity to be in that way. So let's talk about the practice now. Let's talk about this idea of what do we do with this? Like, how can we engage in this teaching of Jesus? It's quite clear to love our enemies, right? His Sermon on the Mount, most famous sermon in all of history. How do we take that from, wow, Jesus is a great teacher, and that is an ideal, that's like a model I want to be, that's a great template, but how do I make that happen tomorrow morning? How do I have that happen on Monday morning? So let's talk about this. I want to challenge you this week to pick one person, just one. Maybe it's someone you work with, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a classmate, students, maybe it's someone you know that you dislike. And I don't mean just like you've had a little argument, or you said the Thunder are going to win in 7 and they said in 5, and you guys are, no. I want you to pick someone that legitimately you dislike. Like their name makes something happen to your face. You know what I'm talking about. Not a micro expression. I'm talking about you're just like, ugh. The eyes roll back in the head and you're just like, their voice to you is like when those fingernails go on the chalkboard. Some of you just got chills, right? You know who I'm talking about. And that's the thing. I know every one of us has someone like this in our life. Like you're like, if there was, the last person on earth and it was just us, me and this other person, and that's all the person I had to talk to, I would go as far away as possible so I'd never have to see them or talk to them. That person. The person that if you see them in the mall, you turn around and you go the other way. If you see them in a store, you just see them in a restaurant, let's go eat somewhere else. Like it's that bad. That person, and I want you to think about a way to bless them every day this week. Right? 7 days of blessing to someone you actively dislike. Not spreading the blessing around to 20 different people, not people groups, not a politician who doesn't know you. I'm talking to someone in your life. And what I mean by blessing, now this is interesting, right? So I looked this up and different ways to do this. I think first of all, it starts in prayer, and you pray for them. I think another step in the right direction would be doing something anonymous for them. Whether that's talking well about them, whether that's you write a note to them, you write an email to them anonymously, some way you talk them up to neighbors if it's a neighbor dispute, some way you do something anonymously to bless them. Then do something they know about. Could be small, doesn't have to be, I'm not saying buy a Lamborghini, but if you are my enemy, I'm expecting a Lamborghini. But everyone else, do something small for them. Could be tiny. Could be talking to them. Could be not insulting them, right? It could be something like having a conversation without being like, be nice, okay? And think about those different ways to do that this week. Pray, bless anonymously, bless unanonymously. I don't know if that's how you say it, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. Those 3 things. Think about that this week. And here's why I think this is really interesting too. Because not just will it change your life and change their life, but it would change our whole community. I mean, imagine if we were a community of people known for not taking revenge when we could, right? It's a whole different thing to be like, I'm angry at, the CEO of this company because they ripped me off, and your anger is never going to do anything about that, right? Your revenge is not going to change anything there. But it's a whole different thing when you're in community with people that you're angry with or that you're enemies with, and you change and you give that up. You give that right to revenge up, and you lay that down, and you start to rebuild that. That's a whole different thing. So what about the people who observe us on a regular basis, and they said, Coffee Creek is not known for the best speaker in the world. They're not known for the best building. They're not known for world-class whatever, right? But they're known as a people who forgive, who reconcile, who don't harbor evil or malice towards their enemies, but actually actively go after those who oppose them, those who are enemies with them, and they love them. The difficult to love, those that need radical love, the overlooked. And they are a community of people that do that. Because this is how the kingdom breaks through. This is how the kingdom breaks through all this garbage down here. When we pray the Lord's Prayer and ask that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, we are asking him to help us be a part of that. We are wanting to be a part of that kingdom, not our own kingdom, not our own way of life, not this world. We're saying, God, we want your kingdom to come here. And so what would that look like for us to be people filled with not revenge and not going after our enemies, but instead love, and that we care about them so much we're willing to do that? Because at the end of the day, here's what I think. I think following Jesus means loving others. I struggled with how to phrase this last part. Even our enemies is how I said it. I could have said it another way. I could have said following Jesus means loving others, especially our enemies. That was the other phrase that I was playing with. Whatever one of those works better. When I do these bottom lines, what I'm trying to do, and I work for, this takes a lot longer than parts of my sermon prep, trying to get it down into one phrase that we can kind of latch onto that hopefully sticks a little bit with us. Following Jesus means loving others, even our enemies, or especially our enemies. Here's the deal. We talked about following Jesus last week. This is another idea here. If you're going to follow Jesus, you've got to be loving others. And you got to love those people that are hard to love, right? And this is the challenge he gives us. I mean, it's clear. He's saying, this is what I'm calling you to live. This is the sermon. This is the teaching. So how can you do that? And how can I do that? And this week, I want us to practice that, because I don't think we're going to get good at this easily. I think this is a long, long time. And you don't get good at anything without practice, but this especially is going to stretch you. Because the inclination and what everyone's going to rally around is the complete opposite. They're going to say, no, go after those enemies. No, let's hate them. No, just give it up. Just let it go.